One of the owners of Houghton Horns, and welcome to today's horn live stream. Usually I review new horns on these live streams, but today I decided to do something a little different. And we're going to be taking a look at this, at this used Ricco Kühn W 393X triple horn. And we're going to be talking about buying a used horn in general, and especially buying a used triple horn. Kind of what things should you be aware of, what things should you look for, etc. And as a control, we're going to be comparing this used W393X triple to my fairly new, about a year and a half old right now, Ricco Kühn W393X Innovation Triple. Now, Ricco Kühn, if you followed these live streams for very long, you know that he makes some of my favorite horns, and including I own one of his triples. Yes, I have put my money where my mouth is, and I own one of his horns. But there have been lots of changes to his horns lately. For example, my horn is the innovation model. So that involves quite a few changes from the standard 393X. So if you take a look here, I don't know if it's really apparent, but the first difference is just in the ergonomics of the two horns. The innovation has a smaller circle. This has a larger circle. And even though it's slight, you can feel the difference quite readily. The innovation triple, it just feels more ergonomically comfortable. In addition, the innovation triple is noticeably lighter. So overall, it does provide a more comfortable experience. Aside from the innovation aspect of it, the tapers have changed on the horns since this 393X was made. You can tell by if you take off the bell flare of a this is not just the triples, this also includes the doubles. If you take a look at the bell flare, you'll know you have the older tapers. If you take a look and it just says ML. And you would look along the edge of the bell ring here. If you have one of the newer tapers, it will say ML1, ML2, or ML3. And even though the rings are the same, they acoustically don't work really well. So I would not want to put the ML2 bell flare from my innovation triple onto this horn. It would be an acoustic mismatch. However, even though the new tapers did change the sound of the horn, the old tapers still sound great. It was kind of more of an incremental improvement rather than an overhaul of the horn itself. Let's hear these two horns in comparison, and then we'll talk a little bit more about things to look for when taking a look at a used horn. So just to be clear, the first horn I'm playing is the used older W393, and the second one I'm about to play is the new innovation. Just to explain what was happening there when I first tried to play the older triple, and I knew this would happen. So about a year ago now, I decided to switch my horns to stand in B flat. And that's because on triples, standing in B flat is just generally easier. Because instead of kind of doing this rolling motion, when you're on the B flat horn and having to go to the high F horn, you can have no thumbs down for the B flat horn and just hit the high F horn when you need the high F horn, and just hit the low F horn when you need the low F horn. But that does mean I mentally struggle at times when I pick up a horn, especially a triple that is standing in F. But just to be clear, both horns can be switched. I just didn't want to switch the older horn just for the purposes of this live stream. Now let's talk about, this is a really interesting horn to look at as far as things to look out for. One thing to look out for on used horn are any modifications that may have been made by the previous owner. So one big modification on this horn that's being hidden by this clap strap, which is also another modification made by the previous owner, is that you see there's no faux pipe here. On my innovation triple, and it used to be on the older horn too, there's a faux pipe here, which makes it easier to hold. It does add a little unnecessary weight because it's a tube that's here that, as you can see, connects to nothing, but it just makes the horn easier to hold. While on this horn, likely because of the addition of the clap strap, which makes the faux pipe not really necessary for comfort, the extra weight was taken off. So if you bought this horn and you didn't want to use a clap strap and you wanted to go back to using a duck's foot like I use, you would need to have us or the repair shop of your choice add a faux pipe back to the horn. Aside from the advancements in technology that have happened since the production of this horn, you would also want to check out the valve compression. Now, this horn does have excellent valve compression, blowing ones and twos across the range, across all of the valves. But you definitely want to make sure that none of the valves need work. And I would say the warning point is when you see compression numbers, and we list the compression numbers for all used horns on our site. When those compression numbers start to approach 5, that means that the horn is leaky and really requires a valve rebuild of some sort. Now this horn, I don't believe it's actually been used very much because the metal is in very good condition. There are no thin spots. Sorry about that. There are no thin spots, no worn spots, nothing at all. If a horn has actually been used a lot, the places where skin touches, so for example, where your hand touches in the bell, and when your left hand touches You'd want to look out for thin spots to make sure nothing is thinning out and there are no issues there. Another thing that's less talked about, but is equally as important, is mouthpiece fit. A lot of times, especially if you're buying a horn that was used by a younger player, they will have a lot of wear on the receiver. And that's because you'll see the students just like crank the mouthpiece in because someone has told them that you really need to crank it in to prevent the mouthpiece from falling on the floor. So I've seen it just so many times as a teacher. They put the mouthpiece in, it just turn as hard as they can until they get it stuck. And what that does, if you do it repeatedly, it causes the receiver of the horn to wear. And if the mouthpiece starts going too far into the receiver, that can affect the response and the intonation of the instrument. Now, other than that, you want to make sure all of the slides are tight. A lot of times slides can be loose if they've been used a lot or if the horn hasn't been taken care of. And there's been a lot of moving of the slides without proper lubrication on it. And of course, you want to check the bell. You want, when you're removing the bell, you want the bell flare to remove pretty quietly and without any catching. That's a good way to detect damage that may have happened to the bell flare itself. So overall, speaking of this used horn, you might think to yourself, well, you know, I'd want to get the lighter horn with the newer tapers. And when I was playing them, at least to myself, I felt like they had a very different sound. I felt like the older one had a meatier, a more muscular sound, while the newer one was a little lighter, a little airier. And I definitely preferred the new one, but there wasn't a huge difference. But on a triple horn, because used triples can be harder to get rid of, there is a huge gulf in price. If you were to buy this horn new, it would be about $15,000. This horn is currently on our site for $94.95. So you can save well over $5,000 and get a triple horn for about the price of a premium double horn. So that's the big advantage to buying used, is all of the new features and lack of worry worth the extra costs. Now, double horns, you don't tend to find that kind of depreciation, which is why I wanted to focus this talk on triple horns. But there aren't that many people who use triple horns, so the market is much smaller. And what I mean is that there are lots of professionals who use triple horns, but you know, there aren't that many undergraduate students and there aren't that many high school students who are, you know, playing triple horns. And that's a huge market. So that cuts out a huge amount of the audience when you're selling something used like this. So that means if you want to get rid of it with any speed, you normally have to cut the price, which is another advantage to buying used over buying new. So for a car analogy, because I really like car analogies, so something you might not know about me is that I've been really into cars for years. And lately I've gotten really into electric cars. I think I can officially call myself an electric car enthusiast now. In my family, there's a Nissan Leaf and there is a Tesla. But one of the disadvantages to buying an electric car is because the market for them is a little smaller. Most people still want internal combustion engines. And because the technology keeps advancing on them so much, the depreciation is big. So if you want to buy an electric car, you got to buy it to keep it. You know, you don't want to buy it and think, oh, I could get most of my money out of it in 2 or 3 years and flip it if I don't like it. So that is an issue. And I kind of think triple horns, I mean, the pace of advancement in triple horns is not quite as rapid as a car, but it does affect the resale value. So if you buy this horn used at $94.95, you can bet that you'll always be able to get at least that much out of it should you need to sell it. That's not the case for the new triple horn. So yeah, taking a look at chat. If there are any last minute questions, get them in quickly. And I know I should really schedule these things and let people know that they're happening. However, a lot of times my schedule is so chaotic, it's easier for me to just plug in the camera and just turn on the stream. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Again, this is Ricco Kühn W393X triple on our site for $94.95. And I think what I'm going to do, at least for the next few weeks, is on my Tuesday live stream, I'll take a look at a new horn and kind of go into depth on that. And on Fridays, I'll pick a used horn because right now we have a lot of interesting used horns in the shop. And I kind of like to look at used horns have quirks that new horns don't technically have, don't really have. But a lot of those quirks can be fun to examine. Thank you very much. Remember, please shop at houghtonhorns.com. And I'll see you next week.